has officially arrived.
Yay!
Oops. But what you didn't know is the real star of the show is actually the 2001 Chevy Tahoe. And so with that, we're going to have a word from Halo's official sponsor.
Introducing the all-new Chevy Tahoe, now offering a third row of seats that's light and easier to handle than anything else out there. It's nowhere near anything. The new Chevy Tahoe, like a rock.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, we actually streamed the commercial, and actually this is going to be our sponsored segment. The show, to clarify, is not sponsored by Chevy, unfortunately. I wish we were, that'd be amazing. But this 2001 Chevy Tahoe is available, was available 20 years ago for at a low price of $24,000. And it has a 5.3-liter 8-cylinder engine with 285 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, 5 seats, comes in a variety of colors, and the mileage per gallon was 18 highway, 14 city. I can't believe that used to be the best you could get at one point. Now, unfortunately, Chevy discontinued the 2001 Chevy Tahoe 20 years ago, so if you want to try and get your hands on one, you're going to have to find a used car lot and get a nice ripped-off deal. With that said, let's get into Halo. John, you go first, because you are a bit more... Just you go first.
As far as the other live actions are concerned, these were the most realistic looking elites. As far as which game did they try to, I guess, gain the most momentum off of, it was Halo Reach, the one that killed the entire franchise.
I wouldn't say that.
I don't know if anybody thought about that. Reach was the last one.
Five.
There's Halo 3 ODST, and then Reach showed up, and now we've got 5 and
4,
Infinity.
And then 5 and Infinite, yeah.
Yeah, and all those showed up as like a recovery. Like, Reach killed every good thing Halo had going for it. Even ODST, which took the time to give you the chance to experience the non-Spartan life of operators other than Spartans, the ODST people, orbital dropship troopers.
Orbital drop shock trooper, yes.
There we go, orbital shock trooper. And then we go to this, which was based on supposedly after Reach, even though Master Chief's first ever wake up.
Okay, so let me clear the air real quick. The show actually, to its credit, which isn't much, takes place in an alternate universe. So it's its own story separate from the games. It takes place in what they call the Silver Universe. So it's its own story, which, okay, we can work with that. One of the reasons, that's what I always talk to people that hate new Star Trek. I'm always like, hey, you know what? At least the JJ movies tried to be their own thing. Say what you will about them, but at least they tried to respect the original canon. They kind of tried to do that here, but go ahead, carry on.
Well, see, I'm going to disagree with you here. Because if you wanted to do this Silver Timeline story arc, then why did you do it and not steal the window dressing from somewhere else? It's like, imagine, if you will, I wanted to do let's pick a Law and Order series, but of course, I managed to get the rights to Law and Order, but instead of Law and Order, I go, you know what, but I don't really want to make a Law and Order story. I want to make a story that follows just the criminals instead of the guys who are actually pursuing them. But I'm going to steal the Law and Order name to get the brand recognition, because that's what this is. This is stealing brand recognition so that their story gets told, in contempt of the legitimate story. And after having seen what I've seen of Halo so far, this thing has nothing but contempt for the actual Halo story arc. And if I wanted to see somebody taking the for lack of a better term, taking the piss out of Halo, I'd watch Red vs. Blue. Right? Because let's be honest, Red vs. Blue is a more, genuine adaptation of the Halo universe than
Red
this.
vs. Blue is one of the greatest stories of all time if you ignore the fact that it was filmed on a multiplayer.
Absolutely.
See, and that's just it.
Halo
fans actually love Red versus Blue, and it's still funny.
Absolutely.
And I want to continue off what you were saying, Carry On, and throw back at you, Parker, in terms of the Star Trek thing. At least J.J. Abrams made up a time event that, theoretically may or may not be possible. And it literally broke the universe to create this new universe. What did Halo do? They screwed up John 117's call sign, which is actually Sierra 117, and they named Sierra somebody else. Like, they gave somebody else the call sign Sierra, S. It was S117. And Master Chief is a rank. Petty Officer is also a rank. So he's the Master Chief Petty Officer. So he's the... That's not a naval rank in any of
it is.
Navy
It is.
Ever.
Yes, it is.
Master Chief Petty Officer?
Master Chief Petty Officer is, yes. Yes, it's a rank in both the Navy and the Coast Guard.
I'm going to take that back then.
I would think a Marine would know better, but then again, you're a Marine, so it makes sense. Anyway.
I thought Master Chief was an E8.
Now we bust balls all the time here. It's not
We
just
have to.
one-sided. I mean, it's the only way to have fun, especially with...
So wait a minute, just so I know, which branches of the forces am I hanging out with here?
Coast Guard.
The Marines
So we've
and
got
the
a Marine.
Coasties.
Marines and the Coast Guard. Okay, so you guys can agree that the Air Force sucks.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone hates the Air Force.
Okay.
Except
Good,
for the
good,
people
'cause,
in it.
Well,
Sorry, did you say Chair Force?
Yes.
It's a big joke in my family because my dad is Army, my mom is Navy, and the one thing in the relationship they could ever agree on was that the Air Force sucks. And that's why, as my act of youthful rebellion, not only did I bring an officer into as a date into the NCO house, but it was an Air Force officer, so I was the rebel in my youth.
Yeah, and I mean, for the United States Armed Forces, it's actually kind of a competition between who sucks more, because the Coast Guard has only 40,000 people, so the same amount as the entire force of the NYPD, to put that into perspective, and the Coast Guard always has this shittier budget, whereas the Air Force gets all the new toys, but they're the youngest force, and so it's like, okay, who really... But what I found interesting was when I was in boot camp, I had ex-Navy and ex-Army and ex-Air Force, all of them saying, oh, this is way better. So, it's all friendly rivalry in the end. Armed forces are armed forces. But, yes, the Air Force, I even have a friend who's in the Air Force, and he knows, he's like, yeah, I don't, we sit around. Unless I get to be a pilot, I'm not really going to, it is what it is. But to transition back to the show, this is what, and you are so right, Carry On. This is theft of property. This is theft of ID. This is just shameless branding over a crappy sci-fi show, because So I'm going to discuss the positives before I get into my response. First of all, the visuals are great. Okay, you know what? I'm really getting sick of saying the visuals are great and stuff. Okay, you can have the best visuals in the world now. Doesn't matter anymore. I don't care. What I do care about, though, is the music. And aside from that garbage opening theme, the rest of the music was actually pretty good. And I liked it. And that's all I have nice to say about this trash pile. This show...
I will actually argue the first 20 minutes were not terrible.
Oh, I was pissed right out of the gate. The second,
fair enough.
Second that it, and this is why, and I think I'm going to piss you off by pointing this out, and I'm sorry for that. The first seconds were introduced to not only a supposedly desert world, but it turns out it has trees and whatnot. This desert planet specializes in moisture farming. So we're gonna rip off fucking Star Wars right out of the gate. And I already just dropped our one F-bomb. Oh well. That's how pissed off of this show I am. We just had Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett take place, and you idiots thought it was a good idea to not only open on a desert planet, which, you know, and we had Dune that we've literally been living in the desert in our pop culture. Now you want to do water? You want to straight up just rip off Star Wars with your opening scene and have it be moisture farming. What the hell?
I mean, these guys did go to the... I was going to say, these guys did go to the J.J. Abrams school of ripping off absolutely everything for a quick buck.
I'm going to break my neck agreeing with you tonight. That's just, oh my gosh, that is so true. John, you have a quick thought?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of everything about this show, I really don't care what their intent was. The sentiment from the writers 100% like just proves to me that they don't care.
They didn't even play the games.
They literally said they've never played the games.
They didn't play the games, so they don't have any respect for the source material. The UNSC is basically a Nazi contingent. Like, they're all just horrible people, and there's none of the good guys of the games you're rooting for in this show right out of the gate. So
that's the worst part. It's like, I thought they did that part really well, because there was that whole point in ODST where they talked about why there were ODST troopers that operated on Earth versus sending in Spartans, because the humans don't trust the Spartans because they are half robot. And that was a major theme in Halo. Like, Spartans are ungodly warriors, but they're also ungodly beings, and that was the only thing that, like, actually tracked. But they took all this time to, like, make the UNSC look bad, whereas, like, Starship Troopers actually took the time to make the UNSC seem good, you know? And they literally took all the best parts of every good sci-fi, every good alien warfare, every single good intergalactic colonization, deleted all the good parts, and kept all the bad parts, minus the visuals. And even their visuals, I was so frustrated that they put a real person in a suit. They used a real suit, like, now it doesn't feel real. The reason why they had to choose the female lead for this first episode is because she was actually 5'0" so the main character looked 7' something. But if you notice the way they walk through doors, it's only a couple inches of separation, and that's like, stop. Yeah. Just end the whole series now. You wasted $200 million. Do yourselves a favor and eat it. Because if you keep releasing these episodes, I'm going to keep coming back every week to tell you how bad you're doing it. And you're paid $200 million to be bad.
Well, and the stupid thing about it is, the thing that really pisses me off about the size inconsistencies here is we literally had the Peter Jackson films, 10, 15 years ago now, The Lord of the Rings came out? The height difference between Ian McKellen... Or 20 years. Okay. The size difference between Ian McKellen...
Yeah, just to jump in real quick. The first Lord of the Rings came out 2001, same year as the Chevy Tahoe, the star of this show.
Oh, of course. Okay, so 21 years ago, we had the camera trickery to be able to take the Hobbits and Ian McKellen, who happens to be the exact same height, and make the Hobbits look almost half the size of Ian McKellen. And they can't manage to do this with the ridiculous budget that they have for this movie. Honestly, or this TV series. Honestly, take that budget, give it to a couple of guys who would do something like Red versus Blue, and you'll have a better... Yeah, and you'll have a much better series.
The three of us
or
here.
Or even the guys who did... Yeah,
or even the guys who did
Forward Onto Dawn. Forward Onto Dawn, in my opinion, was the greatest live-action Halo movie that you could ever have.
I agree.
Yeah, that's why I said that the only good thing out of this one is that the Covenant actually looked kind of Covenant. That's it.
Fair.
Like, I'm not even okay with the, like you said, Parker, the visuals, obviously.
Good visuals
Unreal
are now
5
a requirement.
and Unity are free. Like, if you aren't able to create CGI and use mocap studios, you know, all the things that are in abundance in LA and the majority of major cities, even here in Boise, I bet you I could find some mocap cities or mocap studios to rent out for a few hours. If I had a $200 million budget, are you kidding me? The first thing I'm doing is calling Rooster Teeth. Because if you watch Red vs. Blue from season 1 to where the very end, not only do they keep in line with everything and sometimes drop in whole new stories with whole new characters you never cared about before and change the entire narrative halfway through, you're enjoying it. You're having a great time. 343 even went as far as to send them a lot of the digital enhancements before the release of games like Halo Reach and ODST and Halo 4 and Halo 5. Like, Rooster Teeth did such honor to the Halo legacy, and then Paramount, this wannabe Netflix, pretends like it's actually gonna write something without watching any source material, without watching one episode of Rooster Teeth. Hey, writers, go watch episode 2 of Red vs. Blue. You're gonna laugh your asses off. It's so funny. What do we call the warthog? Looks like a puma to me. Like,
Looks like a pile of crap in this
still
show.
tracks to me. But in this one,
Yeah.
nothing. Nothing tracks. Nothing's good. Nothing is better than anything that's released in the last 10 years. Nothing's even better than the Halo Infinite series. Like, all the CGI in Halo Infinite blows everything about this
You mean
one
Forward
CGI
Unto Dawn?
out of the water.
Forward Unto Dawn.
It's ridiculous. No, I'm talking about Halo Infinite, the new video game, is better visually than this entire series.
Okay. Yeah. That's a thought.
Because Master Chief is still, you know, almost as big as a Covenant, but significantly bigger than every human.
Yeah. So
Whereas in this one, they just got rid of all the humans and put him next to a Covenant to pretend like he was actually big, rather than, you know, CGI and mocap, which they used for the Covenant.
well, and for me watching this show, it just got progressively stupider and stupider, and I was like pausing it and looking over at Hannah, going, "What's so they have full AI control over the ship, and supposedly they're supposed to have full control over Spartan 117. Okay, not only do they have full control, it's like seamless control across light years of space to remote pilot and remote control everything. This technology is not science fiction. It's straight up magic fantasy garbage. So if you have this magic
Turn
fantasy
down his
garbage
oxygen.
that has like perfect resolutions on everything, and you got holograms and you can literally see and manipulate, why are you even bothering with people at that point? Why not just use remote piloted drones?
The Xbox controller
Exactly.
And going to war?
Exactly. Take John out of the suit, put a robot in it, because that's clearly what you want to have anyway, is just things that you can manipulate and control that don't require the human element. And that is like, that shows me that these writers don't even know what they're writing. They don't see science fiction as you're supposed to write. When you do proper science fiction, when you do this stuff like Star Trek and even Star Wars, the point of sci-fi is to, yes, have that, look at this cool thing, look at hyperspace, look at warp drive, it helps you travel. But guess what? Look at what warp drive can't do. It doesn't just, you hit a button and you're magically wherever you want to. No, you're limited at the time that you can...
cutting through Star Destroyers?
Right, exactly. You can't do that stuff. You have to work within the limitations of your technology. This technology...
You have to create limitations.
This technology feels like it's just going to change to whatever the plot needs it to. And I just, by the end of the movie, I felt that my intelligence was so just mistreated. Because it's like, this isn't sci-fi, there's nothing scientific about this crap. It's blatant rip-off fantasy of an already established show. And all you had to do was get the original scripts and just use those. You didn't even need
Play
to
100 hours of the video games.
Yeah, no, it's a sci-fi drama with, and then of course, the ultimate sin, which I had hoped they were going to avoid 100%. Which just, I get that they were trying to go for like humanizing him in this scene. This was the wrong way to do it. Okay, the fact that he got naked in episode 1 is already a
Betrayed
problem.
everything.
And I'm not watching
times.
the rest of this show. I'm done. We're not covering, like, after this broadcast, I'm gonna post clips and whatnot. But then I'm done talking about it. I'm over it. I'll play the video games because I love the games, but I'm not watching the rest of this show. I'm not gonna feature it on this show. I don't want to feature it on this show. Obviously, that's not my final decision. But I'm already over it. I hate it. I do not like this. I hate this worse. I thought this show sucked so bad that I would do one of two things. I would either, one, go back to work for an hour, or two, I would rather watch Star Trek Discovery Season 1 again. That's how bad this show is. It's worse than Discovery Season 1, which, yeah.
That takes work.
It almost does. It's almost like they purposefully vandalized the franchise with this show. Like, I don't know if the writers are that incompetent and stupid, which they are if they haven't played the game, or if they're intentionally they treat the audience like you're a bunch of idiots with their magical do everything technology.
I want to quote Giddy Comey on IMDb reviews. He gave it 1 out of 10 stars. The subject is just why. As a fan of the Halo games, this series is just disrespectful to the legacy of the Master Chief. So good this series is not canon, why would they think it's a good idea to show the Chief's face in a series first instead of the games? In every game, that was one of the most fake hype outs that everybody got me with as every new Halo came out. It was like, if you beat it on Legendary in one playthrough, you'll get to see his face.
Yeah,
and that made me play Legendary,
that was the urban myth.
even though it's impossible. And that, but that myth is what perpetuated all the next games. Everybody wanted the myth to come true, even though it never did. And what do?
They cheapen it.
On it.
They dropped their pants, took a fat shit on it.
Yeah.
That's all this show is a steaming pile of shit. And I mean, we've had those discussions, Carry On, you and I especially, in our other respective channels, such as Overlord DVD and some of our other friends there that have talked about it. And yeah, we talk about, okay, they shit on it and whatever. The thing about it is, you can actually find some okay aspects in those various things, or I can at least bring up alternate perspectives. Like, Discovery Season 1, to me, was at least okay, and you can pinpoint the point in that season where the show takes a nosedive. This show is crap from the beginning, as I said, from my perspective. Right away, we're ripping off Star Wars, and it just gets worse and worse from there. And then it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill this person. It's Article 72. What is an Article 72 that it's so standard for you people? What is this? These aren't. I now don't even care.
Generals are just walking around announcing it.
Yeah, right. We're gonna,
murder of a citizen.
We're gonna murder a rebel citizen, and it's like so. My understanding.
Not to mention, why are we gonna murder her? Oh, because she doesn't like our message. What are you like? Are you just trying to pretend like that's how government works? Like when they have tyrannical power, they're just like kill the message. It's like no, they try to subvert that.
So
they try to do propaganda, but she said no to their TV broadcast.
Yeah.
Several hours after witnessing all of her friends get murdered. It's like, do you guys have no sense of empathy?
Corione, I know you got a thought. But I want to quickly touch on the one aspect of the. I lost my thought. Go ahead.
Well, I just thought I want to put forward a thought experiment for you guys.
Okay.
Let's take a look at let's pull out our imaginary bad robot or bad reboot checklist of how to destroy a franchise. Because let's see, we have government portrayed as decent government that's interested in protecting the people, portrayed as fascist dictatorship. Check. Main character completely misunderstood, disassembled, and bastardized. Check. Ignoring existing canon in favor of random nonsense. Check. Let's see. Little female character being the boss queen of the universe and capable of everything and actually the story's protagonist? Check. Spending too much money on insignificant things and not nearly enough money on the really important things? Check. Yeah, I think we've got a textbook example of what bad Reboot, produces, and I think so long as these guys are allowed to continue to mutilate franchises, they will continue to reach for this playbook and just check off all the boxes.
That's why we exist. That's the whole point of this show, is to call them out. They're claiming to be worth $200 million to ruin something that we grew up in love with.
And look at the stark difference, okay? They blew all this money on their visuals. And we were talking about a show earlier that has that probably doesn't even have half that budget, if even close to that. And it's one of the greatest things ever so far. So
and it's completely new. We've never heard of it. Never heard of this idea before. It makes us want to talk about it episode after episode.
Five minutes of Severance was better than this entire episode. I would rather watch 5 minutes of Severance on a loop for an hour than subject myself to this garbage ever again, because it's like we've taken the fundamentals of good storytelling and flushed them down the toilet on purpose. Because what I see consistently is people start with, okay, what's the first thing? Diversity, which is okay, but it can't be at the top. You can't have your diversity crap at the top. It's got to be at the bottom. And it's not to say that diversity in general is crap. It most certainly isn't. But it becomes crap if you start with it. You start with that.
It has to be organic.
Exactly. And how does it start organic, Kirion?
By basing it on the performance, not on checkboxes.
Correct.
If you've got, like, Dune is my favorite example of this. The woman who's playing Dr. Kynes in Denis Villeneuve's Dune. She went out for the open casting call audition, and she was just better than everybody else who applied. So they went, okay, we're casting it as a woman. Let's do this. That was the only criteria, was she better at the role? Did she do the interview better than anyone else? If the answer is yes, you give her the role. And that's what should be happening on average.
Exactly. It's okay. It is actually perfectly fine if you have a character that you want to specifically typecast for those reasons. It's not a bad thing, but you have to start with a good story. You start with a good story, then you start with a compelling character. And if you want a compelling character that you want to do open-ended, you don't care about the ethnicity or that's fine. If you want a specific ethnic background type character, type actor for that role, that's okay too. But that can't be number one. You cannot. Number one is story and characters. I would say they are both equally important, because without either of those, you get this.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard, and that's what's really upsetting about all of these shows, the latest continued vandalism of pop culture. And it's like it's really sad, because one minute we think, we're winning with The Mandalorian, and we're getting better, and we're getting our, we're restoring the dignity and respect back into our source material. And then this comes out. And you know what I think pisses me off about Halo the most is it's not bad because it tried. It's just terrible. It's horrible. And I can't think of any way to say it anymore, because it's like it's everything about it is just awful.
Well, here's what I would invite anyone to do. There's a movie called The Man from Earth. Now, the production story behind this is a fascinating one, and it's worthy of somebody's study. But the basic premise is it's a science fiction story, but the basic premise is that this guy, he's didn't show up for his own retirement party, and the other professors at the university came to his home where he's packing up to throw him the retirement party he didn't have. And during this retirement party, the person who's retiring puts forth a thought experiment that he's actually immortal. How would he go about proving that to them? Now, it's highly implied that he is actually immortal and was part of some very interesting parts of history. But that entire movie was shot in a 2-room house. They probably spent more money on the budget for the actors' salaries, and they got like all B-movie sci-fi actors to do this. So they probably spent, I would guess, $5,000 on actor salary, and that's about it to make this movie. Like, you could have bought this movie probably for the cost of a used car, like, to make this movie. I guarantee you it has a better plot than this Halo. And if you watch that movie and then watch this, you will see where the budget went, and it wasn't a story and it wasn't a plot. But you will also learn how to write good sci-fi with no special effects, no anything other than quality writing, and a decent premise.
Sounds like Severance.
So,
Couldn't agree more. I don't want to be a negative Nancy. Every episode there's something to complain about. But in terms of like one of the main motivations for starting this show for me is that like Halo has always been one of my favorite games. Star Wars is definitely one of my favorite series of all times. I've watched almost everything on Netflix worth watching, especially in terms of fantasy and fiction, in multiple languages, whether it's Japanese, French, or Spanish, or English. I love sci-fi and fantasy. I love even just the attempt, like if it's bad. Like in the case of Rooster Teeth and Red vs. Blue, it was never broadcast as this super quality, we're breaking the business, we can actually make a good film in Halo's multiplayer. No, it was just a bunch of guys on YouTube that then became one of a pretty large grassroots company that actually made quality content that respected its content and its original source material the whole time. And for a company like Paramount Plus, it goes back to what I was saying to Rockstar last week. If you're gonna say you're the best and you're worth $200 million of investments, loans, salaries, people's labor, don't. Because you're not. Like, this company is just pretending like they know what's best for society because what, they read or watched enough Joe Rogan to think they understand how to influence the modern crowd. Joe Rogan doesn't even know what Joe Rogan did. Joe Rogan just talks, and that's why he's famous. You can't just be Halo and be famous. If you wanted to do something like this show is trying to do, you know, a little bit of ripped off of Star Wars, a cool space invasion with aliens, just stop taking iconic labels. Just make it Star Battle. Starship Troopers was literally called Starship Troopers. We're gonna be in starships and we're gonna be soldiers. Let's go from there.
And there was a lot of social commentary that went into that movie, and it was initially received very butthurt like, but over time it aged quite well to the point where
I've watched it 3 times this year.
People watch it and they get a new message from it, and that's you can't do that with Halo. You can't put Starship Troopers on Halo because now you're taking established canon, established heroes, and you're just suddenly making this is the Halo mirror universe. That's exactly what this show is. This is the Halo mirror universe where everybody's horrible, and that now I just remembered my point I was trying to say earlier. And the original lore, part of what made it interesting was the fact that there was dispute between the UNSC and the rebels, but the UNSC wasn't going around glassing all the rebels. They didn't get along. They were in constant skirmishes and disputes. But the Spartans weren't just jumping in and like, oh, we're just going to murder everybody. No. Sure, people got killed on both sides. That's part of what made the conflict so interesting is that, you know, either really the UNSC or the rebels were particularly the good guys. They just both thought that they were good in their respective roles. And that's really... that's the commentary of warfare that we don't have enough of out there in the mainstream, and that people need to realize. War is not black and white. It never has been, especially in the last 100+ years. Every single war, people think that they are fighting for the right cause. And it would be nice to see somebody tackle that issue where you present two sides to root for, and then the fans end up dividing themselves over which side to root for, and then that's your commentary. You realize, no, as it turns out, while one side may actually be worse, the people fighting for that worse side don't know that. That's what's really screwed. That's what's really messed up about warfare as in general. And this show is doing the exact opposite. Instead, it's showing, look, here's the UNSC. They're a bunch of raging lunatic murderers, and it's like, no.
Not even just saying that they're raving lunatic murderers. It tries to say that the easiest way to justify evil is to just say that you're making the hard choices for the right reasons. I've suffered so many things, and to protect the world, I just gotta kill children because Article 72 said so.
Right, and that's the same crap I put up with in the military from some of the worst leaders I served. I was like, yeah, sorry I gotta screw you over on your plans, but you raise your right hand and this is what you gotta do. And it's like, nah, you could have come up with a better solution. You're just a shit supervisor. So,
To me, it's like they tried to completely obliterate Master Chief's origin and ethos, and then repair it in the span of like 40 frames, while also simultaneously trying to give us exposition that in the video games didn't exist. Like, Master Chief's creation was literally just, oh, you're a Spartan.
That in
We're
of
going to
itself,
tell you along the way what that means. Instead, this one just led with ghost stories, led with, like, basically everything the Germans said about the Marines is what was said about the Spartans. The name Devil Dog comes from Germany because when the Marines showed up during World War I, they were the most aggressive and efficient shock troopers of all time. They have literally a statue of the Teufelshonden in Bella Wood that is considered revered ground, hallowed ground for all branches of the military, but it is dedicated to the Teufelshonden, which is what the Spartans are supposedly supposed to be. But like, they made all humans seem weak, like they just have no effect. Like all the other Marines that followed behind them, like that was just disrespect to the entirety of the Marine Corps. Like the Marine Corps took a long time to become the name that they are. And then they just invent a robot that supersedes that and everybody makes fun of the Marines. Like, I don't care if you make fun of the Navy, Army, Coast Guard, Air Force, but the Marines, like, are revered across the entire world. Every nation in the world fears what the Marines are capable of. And yet, this group of ragtag water farmers just, 100 Marines, nobody cares. 10 Marines are worth 1,000 sailors. And yet somehow a Spartan is worth 1,000 Marines. That's trying to create scale while simultaneously degrades all sense of reality. It's disrespect in every sense, whether it was the actual lore with the game or it's the history of, the United States military. Like, it's laughable, especially because LA is right where Camp Pendleton is. You could literally go to any strip club between San Diego and LA and you can talk to 1,000 different Marines and they can tell you what it's like to be a Marine and why they chose to be a Marine, and then you can have a better understanding for your military superpower. Go ahead, Karen.
Well,
go ahead, Karen.
Even just read the book, the actual book, Starship Troopers. The book Starship Troopers would completely annihilate the logic. It's literally the counter argument to everything that happens militarily in the Halo series so far, because there's a great line in it where one of the guys goes like, well, why even have mobile infantry, which really, in my opinion, is more or less Space Marines. why even have it when you can just nuke places from orbit? And the response is simple. If the baby does something wrong, you don't behead it, right? You use appropriate levels of force to deal with appropriate problems. That sums up what the Spartans were about the whole time. We can send in one guy to deal with the head of terrorist organizations among these rebels and solve the problem instead of risking, good, solid troopers that we're going to need if a major conflict breaks out, right? These guys are designed to be special forces. These are your SEAL team. These are your weapon for surgical maneuvering, right? So, yeah, you don't behead the baby when it, starts crying. So that, one, right? Two, the mobile infantry in the books really is kind of in that level of Spartan level special operations kind of group, because they go in, they attack a specific target, and they get out of there before anyone realizes what the heck has just happened to this city, as like the opening scene of the book. So you could learn a lot from those tactics. And the last one is later in the book, when the main character is actually becoming an officer, they take you through officer training school with him. And they talk about the history of the world and why a fascist government came together in the first place and why it's still in place. And they present a simple solution to why a fascist government is there. It's because it's working. And if it didn't work, it would have been replaced by something else that did work. But because it's still working is why it's there. And if it wasn't working, it would be gone. Because it would fail. And we've seen what happens to failed governments even today, right? Hell, how many years ago did we see the fall of the communist Russia? Because it wasn't working. So they replaced it with a democracy.
Whereas communist China is still technically working.
Right. So there we go.
Depending on your status, sure.
So,
well, John,
the argument...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so the argument of the... why, you really can't have an evil government lasting as long as the UNSC would last, because it would get replaced by something that wasn't going to destroy its own people.
Exactly. And the thing is, and I'm going to take it a step further, while the UNSC is a lot of the culture is particularly based on the United States Marine Corps, the idea of the UNSC was that it was going to be a bit of every world's military sort of marine equivalent force brought into one. And so it's not just an insult to the United States military. It's an insult to every single person who's served, is what this show is. And it's, like I said, so I think we found our book for next week. We're probably going to do Starship Troopers now, or at least at some point in the future, because it's, I don't know if
that sounds fun.
We'll figure it out, but I'm
definitely
this year. I'm
gonna quick read that one for sure.
Yeah, no, I'll get the audiobook going. But the thing about it is, it's one thing to do that, as we've said, in an established canon, to have that sort of, okay, we're actually the bad guy forces. You cannot do that with Halo. You can't take what is established as the good guys. If you did more morally gray area with it, if you made it more, there was a better way to go about this entire situation, it would have gone over a lot better. Because again, that was the original lore. The Marines weren't necessarily the good guys against the Rebels, but the Rebels weren't necessarily the good guys either, because they couldn't agree on stuff, so they kept fighting over particulars. And that's not what we have here. Instead, we have the UNSC as a bunch of mass genocidal maniacs. And
so I feel like we have two major conflicting issues going on in this world, in this new universe that they've created. Number one, they completely ignore the effect of instantaneous global, or in this case celestial, communication, where all of these colonies are supposedly somehow in contact while simultaneously being separated from each other due to, geological distance. But look at what the internet has done for the world in terms of just rallies and protests and riots and stuff like that, is when one group really starts getting some movement, other parts of the world jump in to support them. So in terms of, this is kind of got to go back again. The world that they're painting is similar to prior to 1776 America. All of these colonies are pretending like they are the new America. They're gonna revolt and become their own America, and they're leaving Britain. But the thing that made America different from Britain was things like the printing press, and the fact that Britain couldn't get there fast enough to actually invade the education systems, actually change the legal systems in real time, whereas in this case the UNSC can. In this case the UNSC could send quarterly dropships of supplies where the people are like, yeah, we don't care about the UNSC, but we're also not going to tell them that because they definitely hook us up with what we need, and we're not going to like revolt in terms of, like, who are they fighting? The Navy and the Spartans weren't on planet until they were.
From what I can
on
tell, it
YouTube
looks like they're revolting
regularly
against
saying we're
hygiene.
leaving? Yeah, like, their revolt is literally a YouTube revolt. Like, we're not a part of you. Yes, you are. No, we're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. And it's a circle. That circle can go forever. Just like here in America, there's 1,000 different militias that all pretend like they're not Americans because they bought a compound, and now they can, what? Keep mooching off of oil, water, electricity, everything that they buy from American stores. Like, they're still American. They're buying American
couch
guns,
survivalists
they're
are
buying
hilarious.
American armor, they're buying American uniforms, they're buying them from DMB Supply.
They're going camping in RVs.
Getting their park passes. This is the silliest revolt, while simultaneously supposed to be.
So you're basically
America?
insinuating that the moisture farmers are LARPing. Is basically what it is.
Not even LARPing. They're literally just complaining on live television, which, wouldn't you just turn off the television?
Well, and to
UNSC
carry your
clearly can.
metaphor, and to carry your metaphor along, the response from the government to, well, we want our freedom to set our own laws on our own land would be, okay, glass that area. Right? Let's call in a drone strike, right? Because that's the equivalent of the response, right? Like, you would never call in a drone strike on your own people. You know what I mean? Like, in your own country.
But they have.
Like, you're not going to be like, okay, you know what? That little section of Yosemite that they've taken over, nuke it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the kind of ridiculous response that we're seeing here.
Which it goes back to my point about why not have everything controlled by drones if that's all you're going to do anyway. If you have the capability to have perfect real-time signals sent across light years, oh my god, this show is so stupid! You have the capability to send signals across at way faster speeds than you should. Why are you sending people at all? And then, oh yeah, the ending where he touches the thing and it, shuts down their technology, but then revives the bird. That was like, yeah, alright, cool.
Why is there a human suddenly a major character in the Covenant? Like, they respect her?
I don't even care to know at this point, but go ahead.
I was going to say, like, they're ripping off Gaius Baltar all of a sudden from Battlestar Galactica?
Thank you. You just pissed me off even more.
I feel like whoever invested any dollar into Paramount Plus or Halo, the pile of garbage that what are they called? Burn pits of Afghanistan, that it is. Y'all lost all your money.
There's the denial is probably going to be the most entertaining thing to watch from all the fanboys. They're like, "Oh, I love it. It's amazing." It's like, which is fine. You're allowed to like things that I don't. It's just
if you're a fan of this show, you were never a fan of Halo, and you never understood Halo at all, because Halo actually took the time. Even the Reach was a terrible game because they accelerated
Well,
technology.
I gotta
but then-
clarify that's kind of our own personal opinion, because a lot of people in the fandom do actually legitimately like Reach, and that's so it's more of a divide on Reach than carry on.
I will say that I enjoyed the gameplay of Reach.
oh, I
I
loved
wasn't a big fan of the story, but the gameplay was fantastic.
I can agree to that.
But if you track this story, Reach is going through a very similar thing as Madrigal is in the start of this series, and supposedly Reach was Madrigal before Madrigal suddenly showed up and becomes Madrigal. Whereas Reach, it took the time to show these Spartans invading sovereign nation or sovereign territory, and while everybody thought the Marines were there for some kind of like, we're gonna take out the insurrectionists,
So you gotta
Spartans were
clarify.
mostly worried about the geological damage that was occurring to the total planet.
So
And so the Spartans thought maybe it was insurrectionists because they had no idea whether or not the
right,
Covenant
and
was
so to
existed.
clarify the gray area in the canon universe, part of the gray area with the insurrectionists and the UNSC is that the civilians caught in the middle. You had some civilians that were in support of the UNSC and welcomed the UNSC oversight, and then you had others that supported the insurrectionists, and that's where you get into one of those gray areas of warfare, because then it's like civilians taking sides in the matter. This was clearly all civilians and all farmers and all rebels were on the same page against the UNSC. There wasn't enough of that gray area told. It came off to me like the UNSC was just the evil invading force, and at that point, like, okay, speaking logistically here, if you have a whole planet of people that hate you, you leave. Or you genocide them. Those are your options. You don't just stay there and try to force your rule. At that point, you kind of have to pick up and go or become psychotic murderers that we're all going to hate anyway. So that's ultimately my problem with the show, is they don't do enough to explain the gray area. They don't do not. I'm sorry, I can't anymore.
They don't do enough of anything. And you're absolutely right. Look, no force, no military on the planet has ever been able to rule by strength of arms alone. Not for a long period of time, anyway.
Maybe
right?
get 10 years.
Not forever. Literally, the entirety of the Persian Guard was stolen children re-educated to love the Persian Empire so that they could then exact its will. Continue, Karen.
Yeah, and so I'm just saying, like, look, we're even seeing that play out, right? I mean, take a look at what's going on right now in
Ukraine.
Western Europe, or Ukraine, right? Yeah. Like, take a look at what's going on in Ukraine right now. What, the Russians think they're going to be able to hold Ukraine? Like, no, you're never going to be able to hold Ukraine when you've got babushkas with AKs that are deciding that they don't want you on their lawn. Like,
No,
They don't even want the
Go,
Ukrainian
continue.
government on their lawn.
It's never going to work. So you could have the most advanced, highly specialized, mechanized force in the history of man, and there's still, if you don't have the populace's own interests at heart, then dudes with sharpened sticks are still going to jump you in the middle of the night while you're out taking a pee. It's just how the universe works. And the fact that they are that divorced from the reality of what real conflict is, it really should tell you, like, where the writers' brains are at, and it's
If
not
they even
in
have
their
any.
own skulls.
That's if they even have any.
Oh, I would definitely think they have brains. I would just say that they took none of their brain power to study anything other than...
I type words
I
on
don't think
keyboard.
they
I'm
studied
good writer
anything.
now.
No, they became writers to write whatever they chose to write, and they got hired to write this game. And this movie, series, TV show, it's everything you're not supposed to do. Every writer knows for a fact, if you're gonna take from somebody
clearly
else's
not every
universe,
writer.
you have to respect that universe. Oh no, they knew. I'm not gonna let them get away with ignorance.
Okay.
Like, they legitimately said they weren't gonna play the games. They'd never played the games, but they knew the games existed. And if they took even 1 hour of any writing class ever and done any form of rhetorical analysis ever, they would have, studied their target audience, studied the old audience, studied their tried and true, studied what they were working with. Halo left so much room for literally any other story. You could have had any story about any other Spartan. Which one did you pick? The one from the game you've never played. 10 minutes in, you would have known that his name was Sierra 117, not John 117. It was Sierra 117, Master Chief John. They occasionally called him John, and only Cortana did that because only Cortana knew that. Everybody else knew him as Sierra 117.
Or just the Master Chief.
Or Master Chief. And we got nothing. We got no respect to realism, no respect to sci-fi, and no respect to the original authors. And supposedly 343 approved this? 343, I thought you loved your product. Now we know why all of your games are so since Reach.
With that, I'm gonna conclude with a phrase that Carrion and I are very intimately familiar with. We're gonna conclude talking about this show and probably never discuss it again on this show, except maybe when it's over. And that is, without respect,
we reject.
Exactly. And so Halo from Paramount Plus, we reject you completely. I already canceled my subscription today. I was so pissed off. But for now, we're going to switch gears and do, I guess you could call it sort of a callback. If you are fed up with the Halo TV series, then I strongly recommend that if you haven't yet, you make time to check out Forward Unto Dawn. This was originally a Halo fan production that I believe did get an endorsement from 343 later on as being officially canonized. If not, I don't care. It's officially canon as far as I'm concerned. And as far as most other Halo fans are concerned, this is one of the best live-action products to ever be put out there for Halo fans. And John, you originally went into this a little bit apprehensive when we talked offline. And then I got an interesting text from you today. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what you think?
Well, I've been following the release of Paramount Plus's Halo, and when I first watched the Forward Unto Dawn, I was mostly I liked it, I guess, in terms of it being, like, I recognize that it's fan fiction in terms of quality. Like, it's not gonna be the most up-to-date costumes. It's not gonna be the most... Like, I honestly, I had this vision before I watched it this morning, that it was gonna be about the same in terms of Master Chief quality and just in terms of, like, armor. I knew it was better than the Paramount Plus, but I couldn't remember why. And rewatching it this morning, I remembered everything why. Because it's accurate. I loved Forward Unto Dawn. Knowing that it's fan fiction helps you automatically bridge the gap between, like, why their armor looks like it could be spray painted styrofoam versus why their armor, or versus why, whereas in the other one it looks like they tried to invent a version of the suit that doesn't make any sense.
So I can explain some context to that.
Yeah, for sure.
The reason why the armors and the weapons look like garbage in the Paramount Plus series is because they're CGI, mostly. That is probably what's hurting the show the least. to say among many other. And I just, oh man. I thought about putting the clip up from the last episode, but I decided not to. But I'm just going to bring it up. For those who watched when we first covered the Halo show, I made the joke about him taking off his helmet, that he got naked. And by episode 3, apparently he actually did get fully butt-bare-ass naked.
Yeah.
Anyway. Back to good Halo.
Yeah, so
the thing about this one
See,
is...
that's probably one of the better things about this series is he doesn't take his helmet off. I'll just say that right out. That's the whole point of why I brought it up in the first place. He is the Master Chief from the game. It literally looks like you play the ending of Halo 3, he walks onto the set of this show, and then he's back in the thing for Halo 4. So
this one, it felt so much more real. Like, this is what I've been describing for like the last, like, anytime we talk about people taking over somebody else's series. If you're gonna take over somebody else's work, you have to respect the rules set forth by their work. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing and just arbitrarily deciding what matters, and because somebody else already defined a standard, you are now not within the standard, and you look disuniform, and that's why people are so disgruntled with this other Halo. Is this show took a character that in the game plays a vital role in the story of that game, but doesn't take a vital role in the player experience, in terms of you don't get to know Lasky from a different perspective in Halo. In the game, while you're playing the game, you run into him, he helps, he does his thing, he plays his part in the overall story, but he's a character. He's just another part to add to the game experience. In this movie, they gave him life. They took somebody that was basically an NPC that could be replaced with any name, with any story, and could play their role in those scenes of the game and be a character in the game no matter what. And then they gave him a story that now, if the new Paramount Plus tries to bring in a Lasky, they've ruined it. They can't, because Forward Unto Dawn did Lasky's story already justice according to the Halo series, but also justice in terms of a character arc. He had a story that mattered. And watching the show again, and especially when it comes from like one of the reasons I didn't like the Forward Unto Dawn when it came out in 2012 is because it was dealing with movies like Transformers, and it was dealing with other big box office CGI masterpieces where these people were really wearing cool armor or were really cool machines and just looked awesome, and then you see adults playing cosplay in Halo gear that doesn't even look like anything we've seen in the Halo universe aside from a few cutscenes, in terms of like the officer uniforms or the cadet uniforms. Like, we don't really get a whole lot of that in Halo the games, but in this story they made it work, and they tied it in and they weaved it into the narrative in such a way that it worked, that it didn't break anything. And when Master Chief shows up, I didn't remember how he showed up before I watched it today. And watching it again, I watched him show up and just the perfect way Master Chief would show up. I'm here. I need to get you out. Why do you need to get us out? Because you're the last people alive, and that's why I'm here. Because you're the last people alive. I found you. My job was to find any survivors. You are the only survivors. Let's go. Whereas in the Paramount Plus, it's like, why are you doing this? I don't know. Why are you doing this? I don't know. Why are you here? I don't know. What are you gonna do? I don't know. Like, that's not Master Chief. Yes, he's stoic in his responses in the game, like in terms of when he sacrifices himself by riding the Covenant bomb off of was it Forward Unto Dawn or was it the Infinity?
That was Cairo Station that he rides the bomb off of.
There, so in Cairo Station, he rides the bomb off, and everybody's asking, "What are you gonna do?" And he doesn't say, "Oh, I don't know." He just doesn't say anything. He just does, and everybody's like,
But he actually does say what he's gonna do. He says he's gonna give the Covenant back their bomb, but that's a pretty it is a pretty
Right.
ambiguous statement, though.
Right, exactly. It's ambiguous, not declarative. He's not stating, "Oh, I'm gonna make it up as I go." Like,
yes, I'm
it feels-
going to take the bomb down to the bottom of the elevator, and then I'm going to release all the air, and then I'm gonna fly it out. No, he just simplifies it with a simple expression that you're like, okay, wait, what did he just say?
How's he gonna deliver? Oh, he's riding. He's falling on. What a hero, sacrificing himself for this station. Like, even though you know that it's the first game in the story, was that Halo 3?
It's Halo 2, but it is the most
Halo 2.
story-driven Halo game first, after Halo.
Right, and it was the first, like, major mission in the game. So you automatically know as a player that you're not going to be playing a 1-hour campaign. So the 1 hour that it took you to get to this scene, you're like, obviously he's going to survive. But as far as heroes sacrificing themselves go, this is one of the coolest heroes doing one of the coolest sacrificial things, right? It's fun, also surprising, also not like he isn't saved by plot armor. He's saved by ingenuity and his team, and because he sacrificed himself, that made his team willing to sacrifice themselves. But in Halo Paramount Plus universe, it's, why are you here? I don't know. What are you doing? I don't know. Why would you kill people? Because I was ordered to. Like, there's just no justice. It's not even funny when it comes to the Paramount Plus version. It's not like, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna wing it. And it's like Archer's version of wing it. No, it's flat, monotone. I don't belong here. I don't know why I'm here. And I'm also the most elite person in this universe.
I didn't know why I was watching. And I mean, exactly. I don't necessarily want to turn this into a bash of the series, but at the same time, I mean, it bears repeating. We're saying this fan production, which according to the trailer here, it apparently was given the blessing by 343. This is a quality product because, one, they use props, okay? None of this CGI gun nonsense. Two, all of the costumes, as you said, while it is like an adult cosplay, that's what makes it enjoyable, is it's so authentic because it's true to the universe. This is all believable. You go back to talk about when you first watched it. When I first watched it, I got it when they were releasing it in the little 30-minute segments before they had the full release. And even from episode 1, which, if you remember, the first 30 minutes are kind of a little dry and they drag a little bit. But even then, I was just excited to have something that took place in the Halo universe that was live action and finally getting the on-screen treatment it deserved. And this production did exactly that. Like, why nobody picked these guys up to do a proper Halo series? Huge ball and opportunity missed. Huge ball dropped. Massive opportunity missed for something great. Because this is the production team that should be in charge of the Halo TV show. Not a bunch of phony-ass writers that didn't even once play the game, that didn't even know anything about the universe, but you're going to copy-paste all the stuff for this universe, you're going to plagiarize every single aspect, and then deliver a craptastic story on top of it. It doesn't work, okay? Well, how many times do we have to keep doing this? How many times do we have to keep giving well-established properties to hack writers before we figure it out, guys? Like, it's not that hard. The fans know what to do for a good production, okay? Yes, some fan fiction is pretty bad. Don't get me wrong. I am familiar with bad fan fiction, okay? I read like 5 paragraphs of an Obi-Wan and Padme love story. It was pretty stupid. But that's not all fan fiction, okay? This...
Not even half of fan fiction.
This is real fan fiction that is not even... It was so good that 343 basically gave its blessing when they hijacked all of Halo. This is the show that we deserve. This is the show that we want. Okay, and it doesn't even show Master Chief until like closer to the end. That's how good this show was. I care about every single character in here. As far as every single character shown for the UNSC, I couldn't give 2 shits about any of them. If Captain Keyes was killed off, I would be like, okay, who cares? Miranda Keyes killed off. Whatever. They're all a bunch of fascist idiots. I don't like the UNSC in the Silver Universe. They are bad people. They are not worth rooting for. These guys
give their credit
I'm
to
actually
their universe. It's the Paramount Plus universe.
When
Paramount
some of them
Plus
die,
is it.
I'm actually sad. I actually feel for these characters, and we only know them for the hour and 45 minutes that this thing goes for. But it's good.
When Lansky goes through the
Lasky.
Lasky, I can't mess up his name. When
Hey,
Lasky goes
don't sweat
through
it, man. We're here to help each other.
yeah. When Lasky goes through the emotional turmoil of having to decide whether or not to stay in the UNSC cadet program because he has a very valid medical reason to bail, I felt that. I felt it as somebody who's met guys that had to suffer that, but I also felt it as an audience member just meeting a new character. And even though I've watched this before, watching it again, I still refelt those emotions. Every time if I were to watch this 10 times, I would feel all of the beats that they were trying to make me feel. And that's what frustrates me about the Halo Plus universe, Paramount Plus universe, is that every time I watch it, I am reminded of what bad writing looks like. I'm reminded of what bad audacity looks like. I'm reminded of what arrogance looks like. And I am so happy that it was a streaming service that thought that they could just outdo Netflix because they used to make fun of Netflix when Netflix was on its rise. And they failed so absolutely hard on their first IPO. But at the same time, I'm 100% disrespected by every single person who put any time into that project. And that's what bothers me. Is like, we know for sure that the new Star Wars sequel trilogy, written by people that supposedly were fans of Star Wars, that were supposedly avid supporters of their fans, we were told they were the ones taking charge and they were going to carry the universe the way the fans mostly wanted. But instead what we got was a hacking together collage of all the CGI that didn't exist in the other 6 movies. Like, the amount of force powers that we get in the new Star Wars was so much more intense. The amount of ship battles and ship powers and prowess was way more realized because computers can do it better now. But in terms of story writing, there's no story. There's no character arcs. There's no anything worth remembering, so much so that all of the extracurricular funds that all the other Star Wars garnered, i.e. Lego Star Wars, Legos that are Star Wars, and then all the Star Wars merchandise, all the Star Wars events, all the Star Wars hotels and themes, and any kind of thing that was related to Star Wars, nobody bought into any of that. BB-8 was not the new R2-D2. And it's the same thing that's going on with Paramount Plus is Halo, is they thought that the reason why people are fans of Halo is because there's a big guy that can do a lot of good killing. End statement. That's why people like Halo. It's an FPS first-person shooter that people kill a bunch of aliens and everybody loves to kill aliens. But there's hundreds of those games. None of them have been as profound as Halo until Halo. And even after Halo, everybody that tried to chase Halo never amounted to what Halo amounted to.
Yeah.
Because they wrote amazing narrative design into a video game. And that's why people fell in love with Master Chief. It's not just that I was this cool super soldier. It's that I was an honorable super soldier, even though I wasn't necessarily the best player character.
Well, and you're forgetting one major component to the Halo series that truly made it stand out, and that is the soundtrack. The iconic and memorable da 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 da, and every other single song that goes along with through all of the Halo soundtracks. That is what truly also made it stand out as a different first-person shooter game, because and even if you actually listen to the music itself and you watch interviews for the inspiration, you're blown away, because it's almost like the two don't actually belong together, and yet they work perfectly. And you didn't notice that playing the game, because you're like, oh yeah, this seems really good. And of course, when it strikes up at all the heroic moments, the game really does a good job of making you feel like the hero. And that's the problem with the show, is the show presents us with a monster. The show presents us with this thing that I don't know that we're supposed to root for him. Am I supposed to root again? I don't even know what the show... And then, this is the worst part, is that god-awful opening theme. Like, none of the iconic music... The iconic music didn't hardly hit the trailers until, like, the last trailer, when they're trying to sucker us all into a subscription. And then even when the show started, it just kind of was there in the background. But overall, here's our main theme that's not going to have any of the iconic music at all. And I've heard the excuses that, oh, well, there's the falling out with Martin O'Donnell or whatever. I don't care.
Falling out. No,
I don't care about your excuses, okay?
Paramount
I'm
Plus
a fan.
spent $200 million on this botch, and they didn't think to spend any of it on Martin O'Donnell's soundtrack, because the
Just
audio
pay the man.
director... Martin O'Donnell. Well, no. So when the Bungie 343 Fallout showed up, Martin O'Donnell, who is the audio director for Bungie, took his copyrighted material with him. He said, like, that's why even in the modern Halos, they're not as good in terms of the soundtrack. Or if they have any soundtrack, it's due to legacy contracts versus... Martin O'Donnell is no longer writing for them. Michael Salvatore is no longer writing for them in any sense, because they still work with Bungie and not 343. Like, they lost everything, and then Paramount Plus decided to copy and paste the legally acceptable version of the soundtrack. So that's why we have one singer, not a choir, opening with and it's all out of tune. That's because they would get sued, because they're so bad at their jobs. The reason, I bet you money, the reason why Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore didn't actually, sell the rights to their music to Paramount Plus was because they saw what Paramount Plus was going to do with it. And they didn't want to give them the credit they didn't deserve. They didn't want to give them their endorsement by granting their music. And that's perfect evidence that Paramount Plus wasted their money in every single respect. Like, it is just laughable. Like, if the people that write the music for the games think your show is so bad that they're not even going to let you give them a dollar amount, then you should probably go back and write, script 254. Apparently they wrote 232 scripts for this show. And that's just bonkers.
Yeah, 232 piles of crap is probably what that is.
Yeah, and obviously some people that were related to the original Halo, whether it was Combat Evolved or, like Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, they dipped with Bungie. And then that's where 343 came in and just did this. 343 endorsed and supposedly worked with Paramount Plus to produce the garbage that they produced. 343 doesn't even have the right to call anything canon or not canon, because 343 explicitly went into the Halo verse with hiring people that hated Halo. It's even stated in their interviews on the post Halo 4 releases, like, no, we chose people that hate Halo to make the new Halos so that we could hit a wider audience, and you just cut all of your audiences out. Like, Halo Infinite had to go to Game Pass because there were almost no pre-orders. Nobody wanted it. That's why it's free to play. Like, nobody wants it even when it's not free to play. Like, as soon as it leaves Game Pass, it leaves everybody's mind and consciousness.
I think we'll need some clarification on those specifics that you're claiming, probably with some data, because as I understood, the whole point was to release the multiplayer as a free system, because that's what most of everyone else, that's what Call of Duty started doing. So instead of just making it like, Halo Warzone, they just decided to release the standard Halo multiplayer. But if you want to, provide some follow-up information with that,
see if I can find some.
However, back to Forward Unto Dawn, and why it's amazing is because I don't think they use the music in this one, because it's a fan production that does become a bit hairy. Even if it is a fan production, the music can still screw you on copyright. Copyright laws, they seem straightforward, but man, are they complicated to navigate sometimes. And so I think with what we were given with this series, even on the music, it was still good, it still landed, and in the grand scheme of things, everything else about this is Halo love. Everything about this is done out of love for the show, for the fans, for the game, and that's why this would be the show that I want to see. This is exactly the Halo production that I want. It doesn't even follow Master Chief, it follows Lasky, and it's still good. So, we know it's not impossible to make a good Halo series. We've already seen it. We've had it since 2012. We've had it for 10 years. But I don't understand the mentality of all of this modern garbage anymore. Our stream's not about to be forbidden here, is it? Sorry, there's just a young woman that keeps coming in with a towel on, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, not a towel. Her blanket.
Okay, so she's not...
No, she's professional.
Okay.
No worries.
But her dexterity's good. It's not going to come down either way.
No.
Good. That's all I just wanted to make sure. It's fine if she wants to come and say hi in the show. I don't have a problem with it. I even had my cats on, or had one of the cats on earlier. It's not a problem. We're a little casual, relaxed here. It's just, we can't have noises that sound like you're either taking a pee or washing dishes. It's we still want to keep it somewhat professional, but we acknowledge that we're in home studios, guys. If you guys haven't figured it out, we are not a professional grade show. We're trying to be. We're trying to be a professional grade show, and we're definitely working on our delivery. But
if granted the finances, we will become a
now,
professional
even if
show.
somebody pays a sponsorship, you're still gonna see kitties. You're still gonna hear babies screaming. I don't care. This is a family-friendly show. We're PG-13 for a reason, and it's because we acknowledge that, believe it or not, we do have other lives. We aren't just aspiring YouTube sensational personalities. We are actual people, which is why we're here talking about our actual people problems with this series. Well, not really with the Halo series. Like, I don't even want to talk about it as much anymore. But that's kind of hard to do when you bring up other source material, and I'm not so petty as to not reference the Halo show at the same time. So, it is what it is. But the point is, this is a great example of a proper treatment of a universe. And it's not impossible. And this is what we want to see, and that's why I'm featuring this on our show. This is what the fans want, Paramount. They don't want your... Here, you know what? I'm going to even do you one better. What you should do right now, Paramount Plus, is not necessarily cancel your Halo show, but let's go ahead and put that one on ice for now. Let's take let's take your cast of characters, and let's reach out to the guys who made this, Forward Unto Dawn, and let's get them to write a whole new show for you. And you can still keep Pablo Schreiber as Master Chief, because to his credit, he is excited for the role. I cannot fault him for wanting to try and make the best of his situation and wanting to continue to do the job. He didn't say anything hateful in his tweet. He was very straightforward about, I'm doing this for the love of the fans, whether they like it or not. And it's like, all right, fine. You want to do that, Great. You can still be Master Chief. You're not my Master Chief, but you are the best Master Chief cosplayer out there right now. You cast everybody into this show written by the people who did Forward Unto Dawn, and you give us that story. Okay? Once that becomes a resounding success, then you can start exploring alternate universe concepts, if you still even want to at that point. Then you can start doing your shows written by hack writers, because at that point, you're giving the fans a choice between the product they want and the product that you think they want. That is the best way to go doing this, because I don't believe in complete and total censorship of people's ideas just because I don't like them or because they're bad. I think that there's a better way to go about getting your message across, and you can do that by listening to the fans first, okay? Yes, there's going to be those people who just don't like your product. You want to know why? And this is the mind blower right here. There are 7 billion distinct personalities in existence on this earth right now. Not all 7 billion of those people are going to have the same taste in things. Some people that like Halo the game aren't going to like any kind of Halo live action show. It's just how they are. It's what they want. There's people who like just Combat Evolved and think that all the rest of the Halo games are garbage. I don't agree with that comment. I don't agree with that. But they exist. Their silly opinions, as I perceive them to be silly, are there. There are people who only like Halo 3 and think that all the other Halo games were a mistake. That is how diverse the Halo community is, just on Halo, is every single person has their different perspective. Every single person has their own idea of what Halo is supposed to be. So no, you're not going to get everybody to like whatever you're putting out. That is an impossibility. Because, and it's the same thing with Star Wars. Star Wars has a lot of products and properties that people love and say is, oh yes, this is truly canon for Star Wars. I have met fans for Star Wars who who are diehard OT trilogy. There is nothing in the universe that exists outside of the original 3 movies. And you know what? That's okay. Those fans are allowed to have those opinions. There's also fans who think that only Episode 4 and Episode 5 exist, and that 6 was so bad, in their opinion, that it's not there. So no, you aren't going to have a series that pleases everybody, but that's okay. The difference is, however, when you try to make a product that the fans love, like Forward Unto Dawn, versus the product that you're trying to force on fans, like the current version of the show. Okay, you have the money, you have the resources. Find better writers who are excited about the product, okay? That's all you have to do. It's really that simple. This isn't that hard. And yet it seems like every single person in charge of current pop culture, whether it be Star Wars, Star Trek, Halo, Doctor Who, you name it, they just don't seem to understand. And instead, the reaction is to blame the fans. Okay, that doesn't work. That is not a long-term solution to your immediate failure. And in the long run, here's what happens. If you start putting the fans first, if you prioritize what the fans want and you put that on display for the world to see, we're not even going to remember the bad. That's how much we're going to enjoy the show. Because I've had these conversations with people who are like, hey, remember when such and such sucked? And I'm like, yeah, why do you want to remember that? If you didn't like it, why do you care to remember how much you hated it and how much it made you feel angry? Why would you put energy and focus on something? And a lot of people have started to change their tune and go, oh yeah, if it does suck, why do I waste time thinking about it? There you go.
Yeah, when you write a movie, when you try to sell anything, and there's already a known user base, it's not only it's pretty telling when you completely disregard that user base, especially in terms of just general sales. Like, if you're gonna try and sell hammers to carpenters, but then you say, we built the hammer that no carpenter would ever want. Carpenter, why aren't you buying our hammers? Halo fans, we're gonna spend $200 million on this IP, and we aren't going to use any source material that made you Halo fans in the first place. Why do you hate us, and why do you hate our production so much? Well, we don't hate the writers. Like, if the writers are hurt by my statements, know that it's because you disrespected me, and you're hearing me say my opinions about your disrespect. It is not that I hate you. It's not that I wish death upon you.
We don't do death wishes or ill wishes on this show.
And by any means, I want you to hear me, understand how you disrespected me, and improve in season 2. Improve at the end of season 1. Improve by writing better tomorrow. I want you to be better tomorrow. I don't want you to lose your job forever. But I also don't want you to ever think that you did good when you wrote this. I don't care if you wrote it 237 times. I don't care if you wrote it 1,000,000 times. The product that you gave out was bad. The reason it was bad was, by your own admission, you didn't look at the source material. Because you didn't believe that the game had any weight or any value, you failed. The whole reason we're Halo fans is because of the Halo games. The only reason anybody liked Forward Unto Dawn is because they loved Halo. The only reason anybody liked any of the books about the Halo verse is because they loved Halo first. Which means you disrespected your target audience, you disrespected your consumers, and you failed. Eat the fail, now get up and do better tomorrow. Because you're a person, and like me, I think you can do better. Every time you fail, you gotta fail hard, and you gotta know how hard you failed, so you never do it again. If anything, this is the show that tells you what to never do again.
Yeah, and that's, it's cliche to say it this way, but it's really from the heart, and it's the truth. It is that, we're not mad. We're disappointed because we know it could have been better. We know what better is, and that's all we want is to see something that's. We just want a quality product that properly honors the universe that we fell in love with. And unfortunately, the Halo series does not, whereas Forward Unto Dawn does.